What's up everybody, how you doing today, and welcome to a brand new video. I'm sorry to interrupt my top 100 NBA player series, but part 4 is coming as soon as possible. If you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to watch the full playlist, you won't regret it. For today's video, we're having my entire first round mock draft, and for those of you who aren't really into the draft process, the event will be held on November 18th, so this video could help you get into most of the prospects, as I will dissect their capabilities, talk about team fits, and more, so consider it as a complete analysis. This year's draft isn't loaded with very hyped prospects, who most project as future stars in the league, but I can guarantee you it is a very deep class, with players that will most probably be in the league for years to come as trustworthy role players with the potential of blossoming into borderline all-stars. If you like the content, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to fully support this idea, you could subscribe as well. Without further ado, let's now hop into it. With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards, shooting guard from Georgia. Edwards' biggest trait is surely his athleticism, that makes him a solid perimeter defender and a natural scorer when driving to the rim, averaging 19 points per game for the Bulldogs. However, he showed a bad shot selection in his lone year in college, shooting 40% from the field and less than 30% from the perimeter, sinking threes only when he got really hot. I honestly don't believe he's the best talent in this class, and there are some concerns about him improving his shooting at the NBA level. But Minnesota desperately needs defense, and out of all the top prospects, I see Edwards as the best fit for the Timberwolves, and it's worth mentioning that he has shown a big charisma and work ethic as well. With the second pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select James Wiseman, center from Memphis. The top prospect coming out of high school, Wiseman only played in 3 games at college prior to facing a suspension that ended his time with the Tigers. Wiseman has a perfect frame for an NBA center and showed some shooting range in high school, but in his short NCAA stint, he didn't show the same capability, as well as having a questionable defensive IQ, attributes that make him one of the most polarizing prospects in the class. The Warriors already have a stacked starting lineup, but don't possess an undisputed center, so Wiseman could be an answer for them both in the short and in the long term. But I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to trade down and acquire more depth to their roster in order to compete next season. With the third pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Onyeka Okongwu, center from USC. This might come as a surprise for many of you watching this video, but I really do believe that the Hornets are looking for a center in this draft, and with Wiseman already off the board, they decide to take on the tremendous upside of Onyeka Okongwu, who's personally one of my favorite prospects in this class. Okongwu's size and playstyle could be compared to Bam Adebayo's, as he was very good in the pick and roll for the Trojans and has a solid defensive IQ, but suffers when gets double teamed inside the paint and doesn't have a good shooting range, but I'm optimistic about his shooting mechanics. With the fourth pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Chicago Bulls select Lamello Ball, Poingard from Illawarra. In my opinion, Lamello is the most talented prospect in the draft, and, if not for a matter of team fit and the reports that his interviews have been somewhat disappointing, he would 100% be taken in the top 3, if not the first pick. Melo spent the last year playing for the Illawarra Hawks in the ABL, the Australian Professional League, and is by far the best passer in the class while punishing the opposition when driving to the rim. Despite having incredible size for a point guard, he doesn't try hard enough on defense, but the Bulls should be very happy if he falls to them at 4, as he has a big chance to be a star in this league for the foreseeable future. With the fifth pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Deni Avdija, small forward from Israel. Deni attracted attention from NBA scouters for being the youngest MVP in Israeli league history while playing for Maccabi Tel Aviv, and has the ideal frame for an NBA wing player. Even though his experienced teammates, such as former All-Star Amari Stoudemire, have said great things about Avdija's ceiling, I honestly believe that he's a very risky selection, having potential to be a boom or bust prospect. He has a lot of problems creating his own shot, especially off the dribble, but I think the Cavs have nothing to lose here and should take on the risk if Deni's their best option at 5. With the sixth pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Tyrese Haliburton, point guard from Iowa State. This is a pick I would actually love to see happening, because I believe that Haliburton would be a perfect complement to Trae Young in Atlanta's backcourt as a combo guard. Although he's sometimes hesitant to shoot, Tyrese is a very well-rounded playmaker and a floor general, averaging more than 15 points and 6 assists per game last year. Because of that, Haliburton might be the safest pick in the draft, so any team that gets him will be well positioned. With the 7th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select Obi Toppin, power forward from Dayton. The reigning Naismith Player of the Year, Toppin enjoyed a breakout season with Dayton, being the most dominant player in NCAA. At the same time Toppin is an explosive big man, he has the ability to space the floor, making him a unique prospect in this year's class. However, there are lots of concerns about him, considering he was a late boomer, that he's already 22 years old, and that he's most probably going to be a liability on defense at the NBA level. It would actually be better if the Pistons decide to take a younger prospect with a high upside, considering that they are on rebuild mode. But I have a feeling that they want a specific player to build around and to increase their revenue, so Toppin could be that guy. With the 8th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Killian Poingard from France. Hayes is a very young and intriguing international prospect that played professionally in Germany. He has great size for a point guard, standing at almost 6'5", and displays an advanced skill set as a creator on offense, being very talented with his left hand. But at the same time, Hayes is very turnover prone and will need a good development system around him to achieve his full potential, which is by far one of the highest in this class. I strongly believe that the Knicks should draft a point guard, and if Killian Hayes drops to them or if they decide to move up, selecting him would be a great move by their front office. With the 9th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Washington Wizards select Isaac Okoro, small forward from Auburn. Okoro is seen by many as the best perimeter defender in this year's draft based on his display at college, and he excels at driving to the rim mostly due to his NBA-ready body structure. Some scouts consider him already as a 3-and-D player, but for now, he surely couldn't be considered as one, having shooted only 28% from 3 last year, and I honestly have some concerns about his shooting mechanics that might contain him from bringing his game to another level. As a Wizards fan, I'll be happy with Okoro's selection, despite all the concerns I have surrounding his play, especially because they desperately need a wing defender, but I would personally love if a guy like Okongwu fell to them, considering their lack of interior defense. With the 10th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Devin Vassell, small forward from Florida State. Vassell is a very nice wing defender who fits the mold of current day's NBA, as he's also a reliable shooter from long range. My biggest concern about him is that, although he showed promise offensively at college, I don't see him making that big of a jump in the next level, predicting him to be a solid role player for years to come and not an all-star caliber player. For a team that is looking to contend for the playoffs in the West, the Suns will be getting significant help from Vassell as a 3-and-D wing player, especially now with the departure of Kelly Oubre in the Chris Paul trade. With the 11th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Aaron Asmuth, small forward from Vanderbilt. Nesmith was limited to only a few games at Vandy due to injuries, but when he was on the court, he showed a lot of promise as a scorer and especially as a three-point shooter. He's also a solid defender, but at the same time, he has some problems when driving to the rim and is not very athletic. Nesmith would be an interesting selection by the Spurs, as he would provide them a lot of shooting and possibly scoring, the two biggest needs in San Antonio's roster. With the 12th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Sacramento Kings select Patrick Williams, small forward from Florida State. Williams is one of the youngest players in the draft and has attracted the interest of most scouts due to his premier athleticism. Possessing ideal physical attributes, he might be a valuable combo forward in the NBA, but he should be considered mostly as a project of a player, needing some time to develop and, like most of the players that have a very raw skill set, he is a clear boom or bust prospect. Sacramento can definitely use help in the wing, and Patrick Williams could one day maybe provide them what they expected out of Harrison Barnes. With the 13th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Jalen Smith, power forward from Maryland. Smith is the prototypical floor-spacing big man, but at the same time, he shows a nice reading in the defensive side of the ball as a gray rim protector. His biggest concerns relate to the fact that he isn't very mobile and is not that refined in the pick-and-roll game, but his fit alongside Zion Williamson in New Orleans, both offensively due to his shooting range and defensively because of his rim protection, should make the Pels take on the talents of the Maryland's big man. The 14th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Cairo Lewis Jr., point guard from Alabama. Cairo Lewis is definitely the fastest guard in this year's draft class, and was the first-team All-SAC selection in his sophomore season at Bama, in which he averaged more than 18 points per game and showed that he's capable of creating his own shot and of being a very good off-ball defender. Some cons are that he's sometimes a streaky shooter and is not the best ball protector, but the Celtics are in real need of a reliable backup point guard, and Cairo Lewis could help them now and be a good piece for their future. The 15th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select RJ Hampton, Poingard from New Zealand. Another USA player that opted to play professionally in the ABL, RJ Hampton didn't face the same success as Lamello by going overseas, as he had some trouble scoring the ball, which was probably seen as his highest trait. He isn't the best perimeter defender either, but he has always shown that he's a talented player and has a nice frame and offensive ability. Even though it's being rumored that Orlando wants to move up in the draft, RJ's selection at 15 would be significant for a team that is currently stuck in the middle of the Eastern Conference and might be looking for difference makers. With the 16th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Aleksej Pokusevski, power forward from Serbia. Year in and year out, there is always a young European prospect that is always labeled as a high-risk, high-reward pick, and Pokusevski is that guy in this draft. He possesses a proper size and wingspan for a big man and is a good shooter and agile for his position, but his athleticism is basically a non-factor and is a bad one-on-one defender. It is tough to predict which team will decide to take a shot on a prospect like him, and the Rockets should be an interesting option as they are most likely entering rebuild mode after all the rumors regarding Harden and Westbrook and the recent trade with the Blazers involving Robert Covington. With the 17th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Saddiq Bey, small forward from Villanova. After selecting Edwards with their first pick, the Timberwolves might look to upgrade their wing positions, and Saddiq Bey's selection does exactly that. Saddiq wasn't expected to be the best player in Nova's roster last year, but he turned out to be one of my favorite players to watch in college. He was very energetic and productive in his sophomore season, and I see him as one of the best NBA-ready 3-and-D players in the draft, but there are some concerns regarding his upside. With the 18th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Tyrese Maxey, shooting guard from Kentucky. Maxey is a legit scoring combo guard who has nice speed and is very solid at infiltration. He has a nice shooting form, but his splits weren't good at college, and his inconsistency could be related to his somewhat frenetic style of play. The Mavs could be looking for backcourt help in the draft, and Tyrese Maxey would be an intriguing fit alongside Luka Doncic. With the 19th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Precious Achiuwa, power forward from Memphis. Achiuwa benefited from the absence of James Wiseman, as he became the best player on a solid Memphis roster. He has good size and athleticism and is a solid defender, projects as a very good role player in the league, but will need to improve his outside shooting and his ball handling in order to reach his potential, so this pick would make sense for the Nets as they could use some help at the wing, with Achiuwa stepping into their rotation right off the rip and already helping them contend. With the 20th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Cole Anthony, point guard from UNC. Previously seen as a lottery pick, Cole Anthony fell drastically on big boards after a season in North Carolina in which his team was absolutely awful. It isn't his fault that he had to do basically everything by himself, abusing of isolation plays that culminated on not so good shooting percentages. I still believe that Cole Anthony is a lottery talent and that he's a very naturally skilled scorer and shot creator, but all the reports are anything but pessimistic about his draft stock, so here I have the Heat taking him at 20 to replace Dragic, who could leave in free agency. With the 21st pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Terrell Terry, point guard from Stanford. A high-caliber shooter, Terry committed to the draft after a somewhat surprising freshman season in which he showed good technique and possibly the chance of being the best shooter off the catch in the class. The fact that it isn't certain that he can be a capable primary ball handler at the NBA level might bring some concerns, especially because he doesn't possess a big frame that could contain him from sliding to the shooting guard position. The Sixers desperately need shooting, so if Terry is eventually available, they might not hesitate to pull the trigger. With the 22nd pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Denver Nuggets select Leandro Bolmaro, shooting guard from Argentina. Bolmaro spent his last few seasons in Spain playing for Barcelona, and he's a very capable ball handler with a solid IQ that makes him possibly the most underrated perimeter defender in the class. He lacks a bit of athleticism, and his stats in Europe weren't amazing, especially his efficiency when shooting the ball. But he would be a wise selection by the Nuggets, as he has a high ceiling and they are not desperate at getting immediate help because they are a very deep and talented squad, so their best option might be letting him remain overseas for a year or two, or let him spend his time in the G League. With the 23rd pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Theo Maledon, point guard from France. Meladon hasn't showed great stats in Europe either, but he has an excellent body frame as a combo guard, and I see his shooting mechanics as very promising. He definitely needs to get stronger, but as a lengthy player, he projects as at least a solid perimeter defender in the NBA. The Jazz lack depth at the guard position, and with Conley having 1 year left in his contract and Jordan Clarkson being an upcoming free agent, they will surely try to address that need with their selection, with Meladon as a possible one. With the 24th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Josh Green, shooting guard from Arizona. Green is another very well-rounded player in this deep class as a great defender at the 2 spot with good athleticism. He's not the most consistent shooter, but is a good complement both offensively and defensively, and because of that, might last long in the league, even though he might never come close to being a star. The Pelicans acquired this pick from the Drew Holiday trade, and after receiving 2 new point guards in the deal, they might be looking for a shooting guard at this spot, with Green being their best option available here in my opinion. The 25th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Jaden Mcdaniels, small forward from Washington. McDaniels was one of the highest ranked prospects coming out of high school, but failed to meet the high expectations at college. Despite being surely loaded with great size for a wing player and having an inherent talent, he seemed to be very inefficient when he was on the court. The team that takes him will need to rely on his development, considering that he's a high-risk, high-reward type of prospect. So the Thunder should be a nice fit, since they just entered full rebuild mode by trading away both Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder. With the 26th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Zeke Naji, power forward from Arizona. After addressing their backcourt need previously, the Celtics should definitely look to upgrade their frontcourt with their 2 late first-round selections, even though I think they might package some of their assets to move up. Naji is a very intriguing prospect that showed great mobility for a big man, as well as potential to expand his game to beyond the arc. He needs to improve a lot when taking care of the ball, but I honestly love his intensity, being very energetic and a great rebounder despite not being very big, so I expect him to be a great contributor at the NBA level either as a forward or as a center. 27th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Desmond Bane, small forward from TCU. Bane could be impactful right off the rip, but I honestly don't see much potential out of him, being limited to a solid and long-lasting role player. He's a college senior and showed that he's a knockdown shooter, averaging more than 40% from 3 in 3 of his 4 seasons while also being physically strong. His athleticism is somewhat concerning, as he has a very small wingspan that can be prejudicial in the next level, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but the Knicks should get instant production from Bane anyways, either as a shooting guard or as a small forward. With the 28th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Jammus Ramsay, point guard from Texas Tech. Ramsay is an explosive and skilled guard that was a great scorer in last year's college season, showing some ability to shoot from deep and score both on the move and off the dribble. He isn't the best fundamental defender, but is solid at both stealing and blocking for a guard, but showed a lot of inconsistency and isn't that good of a playmaker, and a transition to the shooting guard position wouldn't be viable due to his size. The Thunder recently acquired that pick from the Dennis Schroeder trade with the Lakers, and with a need for a guard to develop alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Ramsay would be a good fit, as some of his weaknesses match well with Shai's strengths and vice versa. With the 29th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Cassius Winston, point guard from Michigan State. Although NBA scouts prefer younger prospects with high potential, Cash Winston should be in my opinion a first-round pick, considering his very good production in his 4 years with the Spartans. He has a high IQ, is a good passer, and possesses a great shooting repertoire. His one-on-one defense is sometimes concerning, especially due to his 6'1" size, but he's a solid team defender, and his offensive ability most of the times outweigh his defensive liability. Winston could step in and help the Raptors or any team he gets drafted to instantly, and despite the fact that he's probably going to be a solid role player at most, we could never forget that Malcolm Brogdon was a similar case coming out of Virginia, as he got overlooked because of his experience and ended up being nominated Rookie of the Year. With the 30th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Isaiah Stewart, center from Washington. With the ability to play both at the 4 or at the 5, Stewart is sort of an undersized big man that has a huge physical presence and an amazing length. I like his offensive game under the basket, but have some concerns about his footwork, and his potential in the NBA will be shortened if he doesn't develop a long-range shot, but he should be a solid player right away regardless. As previously mentioned, the Celtics could use a ton of help in their frontcourt, and although they had already selected Zeke Naji in this mock, I could see a scenario in which they walk away with 2 big men from this draft. So that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Once again, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a thumbs up and, if possible, subscribe. That would make my day. Until next time, folks, peace.